Fancy. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing my purple fancy booktube hat, and today I'm bringing you a quick little book haul of all of the books that I got in the month of October. I've got 11 things to show you here, a lot of used books, a few new, so let's get right into it. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you will know that I like to read books from the library and then buy them afterwards if I really like them. So the first book I have here is one that I've already read, and that is The Bell at Sealey Head by Patricia McKillip. I absolutely loved this book. I'll link the wrap-up where I talked about it. It's just this quiet little rural, small community fantasy story with shimmering magic in the background of reality. This was a 5-star read for me for just being exactly my type of comfort, cozy read. And I bought this copy used online from the Amazon Marketplace, and it's in like perfect condition. I would never have known that this was used if you hadn't told me. A bunch of McKillip's books have this gorgeous cover art by Kinuko Y Craft, and every time I show one of these on this channel I feel like I have to show it in detail so you can see. The next book I've got here is a $1 used book. If you've watched my book hauls before, you know that I have some used bookstores that I like that have great $1 sections. And this one is Thomas the Rhymer by Ellen Kushner. This is another one with just a gorgeous, gorgeous cover. I looked on the inside so I can tell you who the artist is, and it's Tom Canty. It's also a really pretty like pink and purple dusty rose color under the jacket. So this was a score for $1. I haven't read anything by Ellen Kushner before, but I also have a copy of Swords Point. I'm looking forward to trying out her work. This is a retelling, and I know that Rachel from Kalanati did a review of this book a while ago that I'll link that for you that made me very interested to read it. Next, I've got some more very inexpensive used books because I love me some book bargains and I cannot resist them. I have these 4 books that cost me, I think, $1.50 each, and then one more that was $2. And these 4 books are all Terry Pratchett Discworld books. Now, I love Terry Pratchett, but I've been going through the Discworld books pretty slowly over the last few years, in part because I'm trying to read all of the sub-series in correct order, and I'm not always stumbling across the right books at the right times. My library has lost most of their copies of most of the Discworld books and has not been good about replenishing them, so they're not that easy for me to find the right ones at the right times for good prices. So the first one I have here, Men-at-Arms, is the second in the City Guard novels, the first one being Guards Guards. I read Guards Guards a while ago from the library, and I really liked it, and I wanted to continue with this sub-series, but the library did not have this book, so I knew I was going to have to either interlibrary loan it or buy it, so I've got this one. The next one I have, Pyramids, I believe is not part of a Discworld sub-series. I believe it sort of exists on its own within the Discworld series, so I was happy to find this one. And then the last 2 I have here, The Truth and Monstrous Regiment, I believe are the 2nd and 3rd in the Industrial Revolution series. Now, I haven't read the first one yet, which is Moving Pictures, but I do have a copy of it that I found at a different used bookstore a while ago, so these I will have after I read that one. In case you don't know about Terry Pratchett and Discworld, these are all witty, smart, humorous, comedic fantasy books. And then my $2 used book was very much an impulse purchase. This is Jane Steele by Lindsay Faye. This is a gorgeous new hardcover, another really gorgeous book. Both under the jacket there's this like embossed cover, is that the word? I don't know. And just a lovely cover design. But this is a historical fiction novel that is riffing on Jane Eyre. I believe it's a 2016 release. And I think it's about a woman named Jane Steele who sees her life as being in the mold of Jane Eyre. But Jane Steele ends up committing multiple murders. I will admit, because of that, I had absolutely no interest in this book whatsoever until I saw that Joss from Squibbles Reads loved this book and did the most fascinating review of it that made me think that this was going to be something I would actually like. So that review totally changed my mind about picking up this book, so I'll link that review for you. Next I have 3 little books here from Book Outlet. I placed this order maybe at the end of September, but I think it came in October. These were books that I bought when their sale of the week genre was science fiction, and so I picked up 2 books from that sale section sort of on a whim, and then a third that was a scratch and dent copy, so it was super cheap of a book that I really wanted at that price. So the first of the books from the sale was Forest of Memory by Mary Robinette Kowal. This is one of the Tor.com novellas. I've heard some mixed things about it, but I'm interested to read it. I think this has to do with memory capturing of some sort. And I like having, you know, a printed, bound, published novella or 2 on hand because they are really handy for readathons. The other book from the sale was The Snow Queen by Joan D. Vinge. I guess gorgeous covers are like the theme for this book haul because I think these both have just gorgeous covers. Anyways, this is an older sci-fi book, but I think this is a newer edition of an older sci-fi book. I think this was a recently released edition, but it's originally, I think, from 1980. I have a little bit of trepidation about this, in part because it's, you know, huge, and also because it's supposed to be a sort of Dune-esque sci-fi story, and I tried to read Dune, like maybe in high school, and I could not get into it, and I DNF'd it. But this is actually, it is a retelling of The Snow Queen, and I love retellings, so I'm hoping that the fact that this is a fairy tale retelling will get me into this sort of sci-fi story a little more easily. And then the book that I got in that Book Outlet order that was my scratch and dent copy of a book that I had been looking out for a super good bargain on is Farthing by Jo Walton. I'm hoarding Jo Walton books. I've only read Life Load, which was the strangest place to start with Jo Walton because no one's read Life Load. I read that first, and then I read the Thessaly series that I haven't read among others yet, which is like her most popular book that I think I'm going to love. Anyways, but Farthing is the first in a trilogy of alternate history mystery novels. My impression of this series is that they're supposedly written like, you know, cozy British mysteries, except that they take place in this really terrifying alternate history. I believe this is an alternate history where Britain made peace with Hitler to end World War II, and so that's sort of frightening. I have no idea when I'll get around to reading this because I have some other Jo Walton books to read that are higher priorities for me, but at this point, Jo Walton is becoming one of those authors for me where, like, anything she writes, I will read it. And then the last 2 books here I have are ARCs. I volunteer at a bookstore where I get some access to ARCs occasionally. I try to not let myself get overwhelmed with ARCs because there are a lot of published books that are already published that I really want to read. but I have 2 of them here, even though I usually only want to have 1 at a time. But one of these is a book that I am really highly anticipating for 2017 releases. And then the other one is a November release, and the November releases were just going to get tossed out at the end of October, so I decided that I would grab it and read it. And this first one is The Mountain of Kept Memory by Rachel Neumeier. I'm not 100% sure I'm pronouncing her name correctly. I'll have to check that. But this is, I think, a November 8th release. And this is going to be a bit of an impulse read for me. I'm vaguely aware of Rachel Neumeier as an author. She's one of those authors that Goodreads recommendations and whatever algorithms Goodreads recommendations uses occasionally decides that I really need to read something by Rachel Neumeier, even though she doesn't seem to be a particularly high-profile fantasy author. I've seen that some of the early Goodreads reviews for this are very mixed, but the people who aren't liking it are accusing it particularly of being slow-paced, and that is not something that is generally a problem for me. I tend to like slow-paced fantasy. Anyway, I think this is a standalone. I don't really know what it's about, but it has another gorgeous, gorgeous cover, and it is going to be published by Saga Press. And the second one I have here is a January release that I'm very excited about, and that's The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. This is going to be, I think, a retelling of a Russian fairy tale, and it's supposed to be, you know, beautiful and lush, and that's just exactly my type of book. I think it's already gotten some high advance praise. It's blurbed here by Naomi Novik. Basically, I'm really looking forward to this one. So those were all the books I got in the month of October. I will be honest with you, I'm probably not going to be reading any of these particular books anytime soon, except for The Mountain of Kept Memory, because that's a November release and I'd like to be able to review it in a sort of timely fashion, and maybe Forest of Memory, because novellas tend to get bumped up in my TBR when I can use them for readathon challenges. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you're planning on reading any of these, if you think any of them absolutely need to be higher priorities for my reading than they are right now. Let me know if you've bought any books in October that you're particularly excited about and want to share your excitement. I would love to hear from you. That is all. Bye for now.